The Mexican gray wolf, or Canis lupus bailey, which is what its friends in the sciences call them, was listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act in 1976. And after that listing occurred, Roy McBride, who was one of the old wolfers who trapped and shot and poisoned wolves and other predators on behalf of the federal government, prior to their being listed, was sent to Mexico by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service after listing in order to capture as many lobos as he could to begin a captive breeding program. He succeeded in capturing alive only 5 wolves. It's all he could find, and he worked for several years from about 1977 to 1980. And those 5 wolves some of them were actually related to one another. So the genetic profile of this group of wolves was rather limited. Next. Only one of the 5 wolves captured by Roy McBride was a female, number 5, also known as Nina. Wolf number 2, whose plaque is here in memory of Don Diego, or number 2, was a son of number 5 and a wild male Mexican wolf who was never captured. And the latter, this wild wolf that was never captured, was one of the 7 genetic founders of the captive population. His stud book designation, if you look in the stud book, is Wild 1, and it shows that he was never captured. This plaque at what is now called the Endangered Wolf Center in Missouri honors Don Diego as the last surviving Mexican wolf captured in the wild, and he didn't die until 1992. He survived quite a while. Next. This is Nina, the only female among the 5 Mexican wolves captured in Mexico by Roy McBride. She was caught in the state of Durango in March 1978. And then she was taken to the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum in Tucson. If there are any Tucson people listening, many of you may have been there. It's a neat place. She was given the stud book number 5. Nina was pregnant when she was captured, and she delivered a litter of pups in captivity on May 8th, 1978. Her wild mate, as we said, was never captured. Unfortunately, the only female pup in Nina's 1978 litter died within a few days of her birth. Nina failed to conceive in 1979 and 1980. By this time, she was about 8 years old, and the scientists were beginning to think that she was nearing the end of her reproductive life. They decided to transfer her to the secluded acres of the Wild Canid Survival and Research Center in Missouri, now called Endangered Wolf Center, and pair her with Maximilian, number 11. He was an unrelated wolf, not related to her. Remember, she was captured in Durango State. He was caught in Chihuahua in 1980. And they put them together in this secluded place, hoping that that would encourage conception. Well, the pairing succeeded in the nick of time. Nina delivered a litter of 4 pups, 3 of them females, on May 20th, 1981, 6 weeks after the death of their father, Maximilian. He had died. The pups were delivered 6 weeks later. Although Nina went on to bear pups in 1982, 1983, and 1984, those litters were all sired by her own offspring, Don Diego, number 2. If the pairing of Maximilian and Nina had failed, his contribution to the genetics of the wild population would have been lost forever, and the captive population would have been even more genetically impoverished than it is today. And the wild population, as you will learn later, is even more genetically impoverished than the captive population. So this was a real cliffhanger. It's remarkable that it was pulled out, and there might be no Mexican wolf program if it hadn't been for Nina and Maximilian getting it together at the Wild Canid Center.